Chosen one, some losses don't come with an explanation. They come with silence. They come with confusion. They come with the kind of pain that makes you question everything you thought God was doing in your life. One day the people you prayed with, laughed with, planned futures with were simply gone, not because you hated them, not because you wanted distance, but because something unseen shifted. This message is for the chosen ones who didn't walk away, yet still ended up alone. God did not remove people to punish you. He removed them because they could not go where you are being taken. There are seasons where God allows companionship, and there are seasons where He demands separation. You are in a season where alignment matters more than attachment. Some people loved the version of you that stayed small, quiet, and accessible. They were comfortable with your wounds, your doubts, your over-giving heart. But when God began to awaken you, when He began to stretch you beyond survival and into purpose, the atmosphere changed. Not everyone can breathe in the air of your calling. Some people suffocate when you start standing taller. You didn't imagine the resistance. You didn't imagine the subtle shifts, the coldness, the misunderstanding. When God places a mantle on your life, it exposes who was connected to you by convenience instead of covenant. Some relationships were built around who you were, not who you are becoming. And when becoming begins, those connections start to crack. God didn't wait for them to hurt you beyond repair. He intervened early. He removed them quietly before the damage could become permanent. What hurt the most was that some of these people prayed with you. Some of them knew your story. Some of them said they would never leave. But destiny has a way of testing promises. When your calling activates, it demands sacrifices from everyone connected to you. And not everyone is willing to pay the price to walk beside a chosen one. Some people benefit from your light but resent your growth. They loved you when you were pouring into them, but became uncomfortable when God started pouring into you. God is not cruel. He is strategic. He sees what you can't see. He hears conversations you'll never hear. He knows the intentions behind smiles and the jealousy hiding behind support. There were people who would have delayed you, drained you, or subtly discouraged you the moment you stepped into the next level. God didn't remove them because they were evil. He removed them because they were incompatible with your future. Some people are good, but not good for where you're going. You kept trying to hold things together because you're loyal by nature. You forgive easily. You see the best in people. That's why the separation hurt you more than it hurt them. But God had to override your heart to protect your assignment. If He had left the decision in your hands, you would have stayed too long. You would have kept explaining yourself. You would have kept shrinking to keep peace. God loves you too much to let you self-sabotage through over-attachment. This season feels lonely because God is re-teaching you dependence. Not on people, not on validation, but on Him. There are prayers that can only be answered in isolation. There are lessons that can only be learned when familiar voices are gone. God is stripping away external noise so you can hear Him clearly. What feels like abandonment is actually alignment. What feels like loss is actually preparation. Some people were removed because they had access to you that they were misusing. They were comfortable crossing boundaries, comfortable draining your energy, comfortable benefiting from your wisdom without honoring your worth. God saw how much you gave and how little you received. He saw how often you were the strong one, the understanding one, the one who always stayed. And He said, enough. Chosen ones are not meant to be endlessly available to everyone. You are not being isolated because you're broken. You are being isolated because you're being built. Construction zones are restricted for a reason. Not everyone is allowed to walk through while foundations are being laid. God is doing deep internal work in you, and distraction would slow it down. Some relationships had to end because they were tied to old habits, old wounds, old cycles that God is closing permanently. Notice how after the separation, you began to see clearer. You started understanding things you once ignored. You felt a strength rising that didn't exist before. That's not coincidence. That's confirmation. When certain people left, confusion left with them. When certain voices went silent, your discernment got louder. God removed the interference so your spirit could recalibrate. You might still grieve those connections. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Even Jesus experienced separation. Even he walked alone at crucial moments. Loneliness does not mean God has left you. Often it means he is closer than ever. He is sitting with you in the quiet, teaching you how to trust without leaning, how to love without losing yourself, how to stand without support. Some people couldn't stay because they were assigned to a chapter, not the whole story. You tried to carry them forward, but they were only meant to walk with you until a certain lesson was learned. Once the lesson was complete, the relationship expired. Holding on to expired connections delays new ones from forming. God had to clear space for divine replacements, people who won't compete with your calling, won't drain your peace, and won't fear your growth. You didn't fail in those relationships. You outgrew them. Growth creates distance when others choose comfort over evolution. And that's not your fault. Stop replaying conversations. Stop wondering what you could have done differently. If they were meant to stay, God would have made a way. If they were meant to understand, he would have given them the capacity. Their exit is not evidence of your inadequacy, it's evidence of your elevation. God removed people you loved because love alone is not enough to sustain destiny. Alignment is required, obedience is required, discernment is required, and sometimes obedience looks like letting go even when your heart resists. You are not cursed in relationships. You are being refined. God is teaching you how to choose peace over familiarity, purpose over people-pleasing, and truth over attachment. What's coming next will require a stronger version of you, a clearer version, a more grounded version. The weight of what God is placing in your hands cannot be carried with emotional baggage from the past. So he lightened your load, not to hurt you, but to help you run. This is not the end of connection for you. It's the end of misalignment. The people God sends next will recognize your value without you explaining it. They will respect your boundaries. They will celebrate your growth instead of questioning it. But first, you had to learn how to stand alone without collapsing. Trust this process. Even when it hurts, even when it's quiet, God is not removing love from your life. He is removing what cannot love you properly. And one day you will look back and realize that the people you lost made room for the life you gained. There comes a moment after the separation where the silence no longer feels sharp but heavy. The initial shock fades, and what's left is reflection. This is where many chosen ones start doubting themselves. You wonder if you were too much, too intense, too distant, too spiritual, too focused. But hear this clearly: you weren't too much. You were just no longer available to be misused. When God removed those people, he was not responding to your flaws, he was responding to your future. In this next phase, God begins restoring your identity. When certain people were around, you unconsciously edited yourself. You explained your decisions. You dimmed your insight. You questioned your intuition. Their presence kept you negotiating with your inner knowing. Now that they're gone, your discernment feels sharper, your instincts clearer. That's not arrogance rising, that's alignment returning. God is reconnecting you to the version of yourself that hears him without interference. You may notice that you're less reactive now. Things that once triggered you no longer have power. That's growth. The people who left were connected to your old emotional responses. They knew how to pull you back into cycles you prayed to escape. God removed the access point. Healing often looks like distance before it looks like peace. You're not becoming cold, you're becoming whole. This is also the stage where God exposes why the separation was necessary. Memories resurface, conversations replay, patterns become obvious. You start seeing where you overgave, where you stayed silent to keep harmony, where you ignored red flags because you didn't want to lose connection. Don't shame yourself for that. That was survival. But you're not surviving anymore, you're ascending, and ascension requires honesty. Some of those people couldn't celebrate what God was doing in you. because it forced them to confront what they were avoiding in themselves. Your obedience became a mirror they didn't want to look into. Your growth challenged their comfort. That's why they misunderstood you. That's why they labeled you different. It was easier to disconnect than to evolve. God removed them not because you were wrong, but because you were right on time. As the loneliness lifts, you'll feel a quiet confidence replacing it. You're no longer rushing to be understood. You're no longer begging for consistency. You're no longer explaining your worth. God is teaching you to stand firm without external confirmation. This inner stability is what prepares you for what's next. The next connections will require you to be anchored, not needy. Whole, not hoping someone completes you. There will be moments when you miss them, not because they were meant to stay, but because familiarity is comforting. Don't confuse comfort with calling. God often removes what feels safe to give you what's significant. The life you prayed for requires courage, not consensus. It requires obedience, not approval. And you are being trained for that level of faith. You may also notice that new people haven't arrived yet. That's intentional. God doesn't replace relationships the same way humans do. He allows space to heal, space to recalibrate, space to recognize your own strength. Rushing new connections too soon would pull you back into dependency. God wants you rooted before you're surrounded. In this season, you're learning how to walk with God without leaning on anyone else's understanding. You're learning how to trust your path, even when it looks different. This independence is not isolation, it's initiation. Chosen ones are often set apart before they are sent out. Jesus spent time alone before ministry. David was hidden before the crown. Moses was isolated before deliverance. You are in good company. Eventually, you'll realize that the pain of separation carried wisdom. It taught you boundaries. It taught you discernment. It taught you the difference between love and access. You'll no longer confuse intensity with intimacy or loyalty with obligation. That clarity will save you years of emotional exhaustion. God is also preparing you to receive healthier connections. The next people in your life will meet you at your level, not pull you back to theirs. They will respect your no's as much as your yeses. They won't need you to shrink to feel secure, but you wouldn't recognize them if you were still entangled in old attachments. God had to clear your emotional vision. Let go of the idea that you were abandoned. You were advanced. You weren't rejected, you were redirected. Every person who left created momentum. Every door that closed preserved your peace. You are not behind. You are on a divine schedule that required pruning before fruitfulness. The season ahead will feel lighter, not because life gets easier, but because you're no longer carrying unnecessary weight. You'll move with more clarity, more authority, more peace. And when the right people arrive, you won't cling, you'll connect. You won't chase, you'll recognize. You won't fear loss because you'll trust God's hand in every transition. So if you're still grieving, give yourself grace. If you're still healing, stay patient. God doesn't waste pain, and He doesn't remove people without intention. What He took away was blocking what He's about to bring. And when you step into the next chapter, you'll understand why some people had to stay behind.